Welcome to a new edition of Don Cherry's Grapevine Podcast. And Dad, let's start off with the John Tortorella.
John Tortorella, one of my favorite guys, saves dogs, and his son saves dogs. I think his son is overseas in one of those SEALs or something like that. Anyhow, I remember that I saw the game, and it was with Chicago. And I saw the time run off, 1:03, because as a coach, you always watch this here. So Zach Werkowski, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
He's the guy that scored the goal, and time runs out. So here's the deal: Columbus loses the game, and Tortorella goes crazy. Columbus lost the game, right? Yeah. Their goalie in the OT, they had in the OT pulled his knee or something, wrecked his knee. And Tortorella had a tirade after, as we all saw, and he got fined $20,000. Now, they had a chance, and the guy scored the goal, they would have won the game. But what happened was, after the game, he lost his goalie, and he got fined $20,000 the next day. Now, I had the same thing happen to me. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, if I remember this right. Our timekeeper in Mississauga, and they scored the goal. Am I right so far? How am I doing so far?
Right. It was 2-2, and they scored to make it 3-2.
Yeah. So now I'm looking at the clock, 5 seconds, and I'm going to pull a goalie timeout. And the referee skated over to me and says, Don, wait a minute. You can't pull. What's the sense of pulling a goalie? There's only half a second left. What do you mean? It says 5 up there. He says, no, it's half a second. My timekeeper, the same as Columbus, half a second, he couldn't have gotten that run out. He kept it up there 5 seconds. So I know how Tortorella feels. But he come on and apologized after him. But, I've said this so many times before on television, when I used to be on television. The referee, and I know they went back to Toronto, somebody made a mistake in that game. 1:03, the guy wouldn't have scored. And how am I doing so far?
That's good. You want to hear, John? Want to hear the press?
Let's hear John, the press. This is pretty good. I think you have to block out something. It's a few words he said there.
No, they bleeped it out for us.
Okay, go ahead.
So the whistle blows. The whistle is blown at 19.2 on the clock. For some reason, the clock is run down a second and a tenth to 18.1. For whatever reason, I have no idea. So instead of resetting the clock, we have them tell our captain we're not going to do it. Toronto doesn't step in. Refs don't do their freaking job. And now we lose the game, and we lose our goalie. So the chain of events, if it was done right, we don't lose our goalie, we win the hockey game. So all this technology, right? The technology and getting things right, the stubbornness tonight by the officials and by the league and Toronto, however it's supposed to work, screws us. It's ridiculous. I'm not taking any
So, Dad, I remember one time that you had something like this, and we'll put John Tortorella, and we're going to put this next clip up on our Rock'em Sock'em Facebook page if you want to take a look at it. But I remember you were standing on your desk.
I was standing on the desk, and I remember there were so many reporters in there, the little place I had. I was standing on the desk. They kept hitting my head on the top. But, Irene, you tell me I wasn't right. We were 5th in penalties, and we had 42 times. We had more penalties than the other club. And here's what I had to say.
If we were first or second or third or even fourth, you could see it. But we're 6th or 7th or whatever we are, 42 times. The other team has had more power plays than us. You tell me why. We had Sims hardly lift his arm. We had McNabb skating out there in half, Parks knee starting, things like that. And we played all right. 7-4, I'll take it. It wasn't a masterpiece. We made a lot of errors. Although we're tired, we played a lot of games, a lot of nights, but I'll take it. You're getting on my nerves, I'll tell you that right now. All right, play with the you want, John.
So, Dad, does Tortorella actually have to pay the fine? And you got fined there, and did you guys?
The team pays the fine. I wouldn't tell you this if I was still coaching, but the team usually pays the fine. Oh, I just thought of something. When I got let go, we'll always say I let go by Boston. I had a fine, I think it was $1,000 fine I was doing something that's stupid. Anyhow, Harry, when I went to Colorado, I got the letter saying I owed $1,000. Harry didn't pay it. I thought that was pretty good. Harry got me in the end, even when I was in Colorado.
But didn't you say that after you were standing on the desk that Harry came to you and said that you were the Boston Bruins and you can't act like that?
Yeah, he came to me and he said, now listen, Don, this is the Boston Bruins. We've been in the league since 1936. We have to have some class in this. We can't be going on like that, standing on the desk and ranting and raving. I said, Boston Bruins just don't approve of that. And then the owners and everything. I said, well, okay, Harry. So then we go into Montreal. We lose the game 3-2. And I remember Harry. So I'm in the press conference, and we had to go up the hall, and we're in the press conference. I remember Dryden was on after me. And anyhow, so I grit my teeth and I'm mad, but I don't say anything because Harry said we got to have a lot of class. So I'm finished and I come around the thing, and there's Harry with two policemen holding on to him. He's kicking the referee's door in. So much for class for the Boston Bruins. But you know, Tim, I have to say this, that the players appreciate Tortorella in a sense after the game. He's in the game. It's not, oh, well, away we go, another loss. Oh, well, he's in the game. He plays the game. He acts like a player. And I did the same thing when I was in Boston. We very rarely had misconduct because I was the guy that got the misconduct. The players appreciate the coach into the game, but $20,000. I don't think I ever got fined $20,000. That's a biggie. I hope Tortorella's good. He better not get fired near the end of the season because that's a lot of cash. You know, as I talk here, I think about the time I was on. Remember, I was on the bench and I was between. I was standing between like Terry O'Reilly was on the bench and McNabb. I remember those two guys, and I said, if that referee gives Dwight Foster, I remember it was Dwight Foster. I said, if he gives him a penalty, I said, I'm going on the ice. And he's, oh, Grapes, don't do that. The players are holding me back. And sure enough, he gave him a penalty. I started to go over and they held me back. The players were holding me back.
Well, I remember you stood on the boards.
I don't know how I did that. I never figured out how I ever did that because I tried to do it,
especially with your shoes.
I don't understand it. Like, I could get on the boards and walk, and, Wes McCauley, the referee, and people used to have fun, and the referees used to let you away with it, and especially John McCauley. You knew how far to go with these guys, but people got a kick out of it. I didn't do it because for the crowd, but, and I have to tell you about, as I ramble on here, I have to tell you about the Montreal crowd, and especially the Toronto Maple Leaf crowd. I know this is hard to believe, folks, but this is the truth. In the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, when you were coaching, the people used to walk in and with a hot dog and walk in front of you and hot dogs and pop and everything. And you're trying to coach. And I said, and here's the people, excuse me. And I never forgot the time. And there was no glass. There was nothing. You were right in amongst the people. And I remember I'm sorry to say, folks, I used to swear quite a bit. I mean, now all coaches do. They just can't hear it now. And I remember I looked around, and there was this lady up about 12 rows up, and she said, Cherry, you got a filthy mouth. Oh, I felt so bad. The lady was about the age of my mother, and I thought, my mother was up there. So while the game is on, I went up and sat down on the seats. I went beside the lady on the steps there, and I said, I'm very sorry. I appreciate it, the whole deal. And the game is going on, and the crowd, and there's no coach behind it. I'm up talking to the fans. It was that way in my...
I remember what you said to her. You said, come on, ma'am. You haven't heard that word before?
Oh, yeah. And I remember what she said. Yeah, but I haven't paid $150 to hear it. But the coaches get carried away. And
I remember the time when you stood on the bench, you got thrown out. And Jerry Cheevers...
Yeah, Jerry Cheevers, he was the backup goalie, and it must have been an easy game. So, backup goalie, he was there, and he took over. And that was his very first, he said, I was so nervous, I had the towel. And here was the backup goalie, was the coach in Boston Bruins. I think it was only about 5 minutes left, and we were at a big score. But I'll tell you, folks, I love it when I see. I know Tortorella shouldn't do it, and I remember in Vancouver he was in the hall. But I'll tell you one thing: he's in the game, and that's why he's been coaching so long.
Okay, this is what I don't understand, Dad. You didn't have any assistant coaches in those days.
I was lucky to be coaching the Boston Bruins anyhow. No, we didn't have I didn't have an assistant coach, and when I got kicked out, the only guy that was sitting around doing nothing is either the trainer or was the goalie.
And I remember this was in Boston, so we all saw it, and Robbie, his son, would see. And even Jerry still had the pads on, and he still had that white towel around his neck. And I remember Robbie saying, "Dad, do you ever take that white towel out around your neck?" And he goes, "No."
And that white towel cost him in the Canada Cup. We'll get into that someday. No, I think it was only about 5 minutes left. He could coach. I knew that. And that was his first coaching job, like I said.
And then in a couple of years, he was coaching the Bruins, wasn't he?
Yeah, within 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years he was coaching. Yeah, he was finished. But no, we had no assistant. I had no assistant coach back then. And I remember the very first time that I had an assistant was Andre Boudra. I think it was over in Team Sweden or something like that.
Yeah, it was in the World Championships right after the playoffs.
And and I remember we had the assistant coach there, and he had in charge of the defense. And I lost control because I used to like to have my defense. Used to like to go with certain guys and everything, and I lost control. And I thought how lucky I was having. I only had one. Only me was coaching out there, and I just don't know how they do it. I look at the benches. I see 50 guys tripping over one another behind the benches and everything. Boy, I think one of the reasons I got hired in Boston, it was like I watched Harry sitting behind the bench with Team Canada in '72. He was like a tiger going up and down, up and down. And I said I did the same thing. And I'm rambling here, I know, like that. And I know people can't believe that somebody doesn't have an assistant coach, but I didn't. I was the only coach. I have an interesting stat that I'm going to give you right now. And these are the teams. Listen to the record of these teams. Washington, great team, tough team. They've only won 11 at home, but they've won 17 on the road. 17 on the road. New Jersey, they've won 6 at home, 9 on the road. Arizona, Rick Tockett's doing a great job out there. They've won at home 9, and on the road they've won 13. Edmonton, with that great crowd they have there, have won 10 at home and 13 on the road. Toronto, now how could you beat Toronto crowd here? I love the crowd here. Toronto, they've won 10 at home and 13 on the road. Montreal, and now how could you get a better crowd than Montreal? They've won 8 at home and they've won 10 on the road. Colorado, another good hometown, I don't understand it. 10 at home, they've won 13 on the road. Winnipeg won 10 at home, 12 on the road. And it's hard to believe. And the only reason I've been asked many times about this, and the reason I feel is that on the road, the coaches can't think too much. They got to play. They got to roll the line, kickity-poo. Whereas at home, there's a lot of reasons, but I rid of the reason, hey, we're going to match lines at home. And the one thing that players hate is matching lines. Just for instance, if you play on a line and the guy says, hold it, and the coach says, hold it, don't go out. There's a good line out there. You can't check. You're telling the people they can't check. Kickity-poo. When I played, I just loved it when the coach didn't think.
I remember you were always talking about in Buffalo that they had the French Connection, and they were in Buffalo, and you kept putting out the checking line.
Well, I had a line, let me see now. There was John Rattel, the Belleville type. We had Bobby Schmatz, and we had Donnie Marcotte, and he thought this was our checking line. Actually, they all got 20 or more goals. So I put them out, and I see the coach would take off the French Connection line. Now, the French Connection line, it was dynamite. 45 goals, 38
so
goals.
Who was it? It was Rick Martin.
Rick Martin, he had 45 goals. Gil Perreault, which was a superstar, and Rene Robert, one of the best players of all. And he'd take them off because he think I was putting on my checking line. I just left out that line, and I remember I can't say what Rene Ribert, they were all French, like I said, the French connection, and they were swearing coming off. You can't, the players, and I know you guys that are playing out there and everything, when you go kickity-poo, you win. You think too much, don't think too much. I remember my very first practice with the Boston Bruins. After the practice, they were all at center, and I said, okay, I said, John Busick, you take the power play. John Busick had 500 goals in the National Hockey League, half of them with the power play. I said, you take that power play and work with it down there. And the players, the coach, I said, what, am I going to tell John Busick how to score goals?
Yeah, they also had Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito.
Yeah, not bad. Anyhow, I just left them alone. And when I coached, I left the players, let them do what they want in the other end. But in my end, I own them. Don't think as your coach too much. Let the players go. That's the best way. They just love it. And that's one of the reasons. The only reason I can think of is that these great teams here, really great teams, have a better record on the road than they do at home.
So, Dad, it's about halfway through the season, a little bit more than halfway through the season, and everybody's wondering who's going to win what award, but I think the Norris is already locked up by one guy.
Yeah, John Carlson of Washington. He's got 51 points, 13 goals, 33 points on the road, which is unbelievable. He's plus 18, and that is really something. If he wins, I don't know how he could ever lose. The guy, two guys I think that should be thought about anyhow is Dougie Hamilton. He's got 37 points, and he's plus 30, which is pretty good. And Shea Weber, the guy I like, hits, fights, and does everything. He's a captain. He's plus 7, I know, on a team struggling to predict the playoffs. He got 31 points. But John Carlson will be the guy that wins the Norris. You know, Tim, I would like to double everything that he's got right now. He's got 51 points, so he'd have 102 points. 13 goals, so he'd have 26 goals. I just have to tell you what Bobby, I know a lot of people don't know Bobby Orr, and they say, oh, what Bobby Orr? Bobby Orr, that was a long time ago. But let me just tell you what Bobby Orr had. I think he played 80 games. He had 46 goals, 89 assists, and he was plus 123. Now, when I used to do banquets, I'd say that, and the young players out there, come on, like that. That's what I meant. 46 goals. I'll say it again. I'll say this record again. 46 goals, 89 assists, plus 123. Now, don't forget, this guy, Bobby Orr, used to block shots, and he could hit a ton, and he had 5 fights that year. There's no defenseman like him. As they used to say, I like what Bobby Clark said and Serge Savard said. Bobby Clark said, it's too bad there's not a higher league you can go to. And I like Serge Savard, what he said. There's players, there's stars, there's superstars, and then there's Bobby Orr.
Well, Dad, we'll end the podcast. We're going to talk about the World Juniors. Canada wins gold, 4-3, and we've actually saw quite a few of the players that played on Team Canada.
Yeah, I remember Nick Dawes. He was the Burlington Eagles. We saw him in the Marley tournament, I think it was.
Yep. So we saw all these kids when they were 15 years old.
Yeah, and Jamie Drysdale, who I think in the National Hockey League, only 17, get hurt. He still played. I think he's going to be he's going to star in the National Hockey League someday.
Yeah. Well, you just think about it. He was 17 years old, and in the game against Finland, he had the second most minutes of ice time. So shows something for a 17-year-old defenseman. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and Barrett Hayton, we saw him with the Toronto Red Wings. He played injured. You said he had a separated shoulder.
Yeah, they said first-degree separated shoulder.
Hayton Dudas, we saw he played for the North Central Predators. And Connor McMichael, I think I saw him at the Marley tournament. I don't remember that much. Akil Thomas, I remember I could tell you a story about him. This kid is tough. We're watching the game, and I know I'd better not say his name. I won't say the kid's name. He was the most talented guy on the ice anyhow, and for some reason at the stoppage of play, he goes over and kicks Thomas's feet out from him, and I says, oh boy, watch this here. And the next time this kid that kicked the feet out picked up the puck, he nailed him. You couldn't believe. Hurt his shoulder too. So I'm at the prospect game, and I'm walking around, and I see this talented kid. I won't mention his name. And I said, You remember the time you kicked the feet out of that kid, Thomas? He says, yeah, I remember. There he is, sitting right over there. Really something. Anyhow, Thomas, he played a great game, got the winning goal, eh?
Yeah, didn't play too much, but when he came out, it was, that's the kind of player he was when we were watching him in minor midget. Yeah. He was just a grinding guy that as you said, would bang and was just.
He was a grinder. And a great game. And Liam Foodie, remember the story we saw him together?
Yeah, we were sitting watching him, and he didn't play. Who did he play for there? He played for the
Markham Majors.
Yeah, and they weren't a very good team, Markham, and so we were watching and we weren't kind of paying attention. And he went after the puck and he took off. And it was you and I looked at each other.
Looked like McKinnon taking off.
Yeah, you were like, holy smokes! He's one of those guys that goes faster and faster. He never looks like he's skating harder, but he's unbelievable at speed.
And remember we went to see Quentin Byfield for the Central Ontario Wolves? Remember we went out to that arena first of all, we go to St. Andrews Arena, college, and it's a private college, and we drive in, it was like in a movie. It was all the grass was like a golf course, and all the stones, they had them all the way around, were all white, and beautiful arena. Remember that?
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
It was steep, remember that?
Yeah.
You tripped there, you're dead.
Yeah.
You're all the way down. And I remember the first two periods, he was okay. And he must have heard I was there, and he turned it on in the third period. What a goal he got, eh?
He came down the one side, and he let a shot go. I mean, it was lucky he didn't hit the goal. He might have killed him.
Yeah. And Kevin Ball of the Toronto Marlies, and I'll tell you a story about Kevin Ball. I remember this game. I can still see it now. He's standing at his own blue line, and a little Irish guy on the other team picked it up, and he was roaring down the ice going 90 miles an hour, deacon and diving, and Kevin was just standing there. He didn't move. And the guy ran right into the blue line. Well, Kevin was about 6'4" at the time, and this guy was about 5'9". Naturally, it's a head. And so he got, what did he get? A 5-minute major?
Yeah, I think he got 5 minutes.
5-minute major and for a hit to the head. So I never, ever go to the referee. So I go to the referee, and as he's going off, hey, wait a minute. He was just standing there. He says, Grapes, what am I going to do? The referee says, the kid's laying on the ice. It's got to be a hit to the head, but I won't put his name in to be suspended. So I saw a lot of these guys play. There are a lot of guys from Ontario, coach, but I have to say Dale Hunter and his staff did a great job. When they were down 3-1, there was no panic. They just kept going. And I think that I love that. What I think is Tarasov, one of those Russians that wrote a book, and they said, I love it. They said they can do a lot of things. We got just as much skill as they've got. We've got everything, but the one thing we don't have is Canadian heart that never quit, and we didn't quit. And Dale, I watched him on the bench. He never got upset. We're down 3-1, but I have to admit there was strange penalties at the end to the Russians. But we killed off our penalties. We were 5-3. We deserved every minute of it. And good luck to the kids, and good luck. I hope they do good in the National Hockey League, wherever they go. And Dale and the staff and everybody that was with that club, congratulations.